We have talked about that 10-step methodology, and in talking about it, we even built upon it further, and we talked about something called TPT. We talked about how TPT actually resides in our review section. TPT basically or essentially is teaching something until they get it, practicing until they get it, and testing until they get it. And this is done over a series of lessons. Now we're going to do something called segmentation. We're going to take this 10-step methodology and we are going to segment it. What exactly do I mean by segment? We're going to put multiple steps of the methodology together and form a single block. The block is basically a segment, and that is treated as a single chunk of time and activity. These are two keywords over here. Instead of thinking about your introduction as one thing, as a single unit where you're going to assign time and do that activity, we want to think about a segment or a block as something that happens together. Looking at our 10-step methodology, what I usually like to do is to break this into 4 parts. I find that this is very effective. What I do is I take the introduction and the warm-up and I'm going to make one segment out of it. I will take the review and I'll make a second segment out of it. I will then take the leading, presentation and practice, and then I will make a third segment out of that. Then my review, conclusion, and homework, they fall into the 4th segment. The best formula I say is to split it into 4 segments, which we call quadrants. So ideally, my number 1 is opening. That means when I go into class and I want to do an opening, I'm thinking about that as my introduction and warm-up. Very easy to think about that. I don't just think about I need to do introduction and I need to do warm-up and I need to make them so distinct. Yes, they need to be distinct. But then when you think about it as a single unit, it's easy to plan for it. And we will look at the benefits very soon. Now, the next one I like to do is to think about my review, first review. And this is where my TPT actually falls. If I have other routines, they also fall into my review 1 section. The third one I like to think of as my lesson, which is the lead-in and the PPP. We looked at that. So my lead-in, my presentation, my practice and production, I'm going to think of that as my main lesson for the day. And then the final one is my closing. During the closing, I know I need to do review, I need to do conclusion, and I need to think about homework. If I make this box like this, and I divide it into 4 parts, I'm saying that, number 1, I'm going to do my opening. And in opening, I'm going to do introduction, and I'm going to do warm-up. And then number 2, I'm going to do my review. In the review, I'm going to either do the normal review, I'm going to do TPT, or if I have some other routines, I'm going to do it in the second segment. Now, when it's getting to this third segment, I know that this is my main lesson for today. That is where my lead-in and my PPP comes in. This is my third segment, my main lesson. And the 4th aspect, when I'm done with my main lesson, I know that the next thing that is coming, number 4, is my closing. There are a lot of benefits to doing this. And the first part is to set up routines that are easy to follow by the teacher and the student. When you do this and you put it into quadrants, it is easy to think about it. For instance, if you walk into class thinking about 10 steps compared to if you walk into class thinking about 4 segments, I'm sure 4 segments should be much easier. This is one of the benefits to breaking your lesson into segments. So it makes it easy for you, the teacher, to follow. I know that when I go into class, the first thing I'm going to do is my introduction. When I'm done with my introduction, which is intro and warm-up, the next thing I have to do is a review. I'm thinking about my TPT, I'm thinking about routines and stuff like that. When that is done, I know, okay, what is my next segment? My next segment is actually my main lesson. Okay, what does my main lesson entail? It has my lead and it has my PPP. Good, then I get to it. When I'm done with my main lesson, I know the next segment is closing. What is inside closing? Then I just deal with it and I'm done. So it is easier for you, the teacher, to follow. And it's easy as well for your students to follow that. Now, one other reason why you should do lesson segmenting is that it helps a lot with energy moderation for a single lesson and throughout the day. And I'm going to explain that. So, when I segment my time into these quadrants, what I'm doing is that when I go into my lesson, I need energy for individual segments. I don't plan as I need energy for individual steps, because then it becomes 10 steps that need energy. But then if I break into 4 segments, into quadrants that need energy, I can have spaces in between those quadrants where I bring down the energy a little bit and then I pick it up in the next segment. So, for instance, look at it like this. When I go into class, first segment begins. We go energy high. We do our introduction and warm up, we are high. When at that point energy is high, when that segment is ending, we are bringing the energy down and everyone goes back and sits down. We are relaxing and our energy goes down a little bit. When the next segment, number 2, is starting, we take the energy up a notch again. When that is ending, which is our review, we bring the energy down and everybody can relax. There's no pressure. You can let the kids catch their breath. When that segment is done, when we are starting our main lesson, we just kick it up again. We start with new energy. The main lesson. You get the trend. Then we bring it down and then for number 4, and then we bring it down and then we go off. So it is easy to moderate your energy, and this way it becomes so much better when you're doing this for the whole day, especially if you have a lot of lessons. Now, segments also help with something really crucial, which is that it helps with lesson preparation, as it is easier to visualize what should happen in each lesson quadrant or segment. So, if I have to think about introduction alone and think about warm up alone, that becomes a whole lot more. But then if I think about it like this, today during my first segment, I want to do something on singing a weather song. That means when I go in, my introduction, hello, hi, how are you feeling? Is it hot? Is it cold? Right from there, I'm starting something on weather. And then we're going to bring in a weather song, and then that forms my introduction and my warm up. So when we think about it this way, it's easier to plan for it. When you think about your main lesson as, what do I want to accomplish in this lesson? In this lesson, I want to teach animals. So you are thinking about it as a whole unit. That way, it's easy for you to visualize what should happen. So for instance, if I'm going to teach animals, first thing, my lead-in, this is what I'm going to do. My presentation, I have to let them understand animals. During my practice, this is what... So you think of it as a single block and it makes it easier to plan for it. Okay, today during my main lesson, do I want to do an activity? Do I want them to do a worksheet or whatever? It's easier to visualize your lesson if you break them into segments. Now, also, lesson segments help with time management. What I do in my class, in my lessons, when I segment my time, segment number 1, 2, 3, 4, I know number 1 is introduction and warm up. So, if my lesson is 40 minutes, let's say I'm going to put 5 minutes into my first segment. I know that this segment number 3 needs a lot more time. So I'm going to start off by putting 20 minutes in that. TPT might take a little more time, so I'm going to put 10 minutes into TPT. And then I will put 5 minutes into the closing. It's easier to deal with it like this as compared to if you have to think about it like, okay, introduction, how much time do I give introduction? How much time do I give warm up? How much time do I give my lead in my No, I'm going to think of this all as a single unit. So, when I get into class and my time starts, it begins, I know 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, my first segment is done. Introduction and warm up should be done. And then energy level should be coming down. When I'm done with that, boom, we kick it up. We start our review. I know 10 minutes is what my review is supposed to be. My TPT should be done in 10 minutes. It's not I'm thinking about it one step by just assign the time to a block. It makes it so much easy. I know my main lesson I need to use 20 minutes. It's not I need to use 5 minutes for leading. I need to use 10 minutes for it's difficult to keep track of it that way. So this segmentation, it helps with time management. Finally, segmentation is a good exaggerator for transitioning from activity to activity. What do we mean by that? When you finish one activity on a low and everything goes low, even the next one, if the energy is just a little higher, it feels like because the energy is going high, everything feels exaggerated. And the kids will be ready to jump in because of the low. If you do watch movies, that's something they do. Before they give you a really loud sound, they always brings the sound to 0. So it's like boom. Then that feels like an exaggeration. That's just what we mean by this. So you're going to bring the energy down and it feels like it's 0. So if you just bring it up a little, it feels like it's a lot and the kids just jump in and they're doing this with you. So lesson segmentation, these are some of the benefits as to why you want to do that. First of all, we are saying that as a teacher, it will help make it easy for you to identify the parts of the lessons you're teaching. It makes it easy to form a routine that you, the teacher, you can follow and the students can follow. We're saying it also helps with energy moderation for a single lesson and throughout your day even. We are also saying that it will help with preparation of lessons because it makes it easy for you to visualize your lesson in terms of blocks or chunks. Also, it makes it easy for you to manage your time while you're teaching and even to assign the time to it before you teach. Also, lesson segmentation is a good exaggerator because while energy is going down and up, it feels like an exaggeration.